What's going on, people? My name is Batman, and I wanted to make a follow-up video to the supply drop rant I put out the other day so I could address some of the misconceptions going around in the comments section. As you'll recall, I basically argued that black market supply drops constitute a form of gambling, because if you spend $2 on a pack hoping to unlock a weapon, but instead you end up with a reticle, a gun camo, and some attachment variant, none of which you are ever going to use, and even if you were, they wouldn't be worth the $2, and that's going by the standard Treyarch themselves set, right? If you match up the price and amount of the content of supply drops relative to what was in the base game for $60, it's clear that $2 for those junk items is basically a lot. And admittedly, a lawsuit trying to argue that this was illegal because of its accessibility to kids would be a bit of a stretch. It would be what I call a long shot lawsuit, kind of like when Apple tried to copyright rectangular phones. But of course, sometimes those kind of lawsuits work out because Apple definitely copyrighted rectangles. OJ's innocence would be a long shot lawsuit, or I guess it wouldn't be a lawsuit, it would be a long shot legal argument. But hey, he pulled it off. As I said in the video, nobody's taking Activision to court. A lot of people were calling me an idiot for even suggesting such a thing was possible. But look, it was meant to be taken with a grain of salt. I know it was a little absurd. I was primarily just trying to demonstrate that based on the cultural values and morals which drive our gambling laws, the supply drop business practice is very questionable, obviously anti-consumer, and frankly, slimy and unethical. Because if you accept my premise that the vast majority of supply drop sales are driven by the guns, people wanting guns, right? And if you accept that the vast majority of the junk items like emblem pieces and shit aren't worth the $2 and aren't even going to be touched by most players anyways, well then at the end of the day you have a system where the de facto result is millions of people spending a lot of their money and essentially getting nothing in return. And that is exactly what happens to gamblers, right? They spend a whole bunch of money and get nothing in return. The only difference is supply drops will give you a consolation prize when you lose. But don't let that fool you into thinking that it's not actually a loss, because it is. It is de facto gambling. De facto would be the key term I'd use outside of a courtroom, okay? The definition of de facto is, and I quote, in fact or in effect, whether by right or not, okay? So let me give you an example. Batman is the de facto law enforcement of Gotham City, all right? He's not officially a part of the Popo. He's not technically a cop, but he catches the bad guys and brings them to justice. And sometimes the head of police gives him assignments and shit. So he's de facto law enforcement, right? Supply drops are de facto gambling. Now, what a lot of people in the comments of my last supply drop video argued was that, if Black Ops 3 supply drops are gambling, then so are Pokemon cards and Yu-Gi-Oh cards and Halo 5 rec packs and CSGO crates and whatever else. But this is a false equivalency, okay? And it is very understandable how you might conflate Black Ops 3 supply drops with that other stuff. But the fact of the matter is Black Ops 3 takes the system a step farther in a very shitty direction. That makes it unique in its terribleness. For Pokemon cards to be as shitty as Black Ops 3 supply drops, there would have to be only a 1% chance that you actually get a Pokemon card when you spend $2 on a pack. And the other 99% of the time, all you get is like little Pokemon stickers that aren't worth the $2. You know what pisses me off? When grown-ups would call it Pokemon. You know it's not Pokemon, you smug fuck. Stop degrading the hobbies of a 4-year-old because it makes you feel more mature. Because when you buy a pack of Pokemon cards, you want Pokemon cards and you get Pokemon cards. When you buy a Black Ops 3 supply drop, what most people want most of the time is guns. And what they get is some random cosmetic junk shit they probably don't care about and are probably never going to use, most of the time anyway. I mean, maybe you're one of these guys that gets the whip nay-nay gesture and busts a nut because you're super excited to look like an ass every now and then at the end of a match. But obviously this is where the system is cleverly modeled and why a court case would be murky at best. You have to basically prove intent. You have to prove that people are buying these supply drops in such high quantities solely because they want the guns. Now look, I know that's why people are buying the supply drops. I'm sure most of you know that. I guarantee you they would be selling a lot less supply drops if they didn't have the guns in there, and frankly, people wouldn't even be any more upset about these drops than they are FIFA packs or CSGO crates, right? Like, people don't like those things, but they don't fucking get as infuriated about them as people do about the supply drops. Because the supply drops are paywalling off actual content, not just cosmetic stuff, actual content that people want. Now, Treyarch knows the guns sell supply drops, that's why they keep adding more and more guns, but that would be difficult to prove in court. And that's why it remains de facto gambling, because we know what people consider winning when they buy supply drops, and we know when people feel like their money was wasted and lost. We know these things. There are things in life that you know to be true even if they are obfuscated by technicalities. We don't need a court to destroy this system, we can do it ourselves. Just don't stop talking about it. Now, this same line of thinking applies to Halo 5 rec packs, because Halo's rec packs are identical to Pokemon cards, except they're virtual, right? Now, I have my own beef with the rec pack system, mainly that it's pay to win, but the fact of the matter is, Halo 5 recs guarantee you playable content for your money. You know what you are getting when you spend money on a rec pack, and that means you can decide whether it's worth the money. Now granted, can you argue that some of the playable content is worth more than other playable content? Yes, just like you could with Pokemon cards. But then, a lot of that might be subjective. Just because you think the Sword Wraith is worth more than the Saw machine gun, doesn't mean everyone feels that way. Just because you think Pikachu is worth more than Charmander doesn't mean everyone feels that way. And granted, yes, you can argue that probably everyone agrees that like a Scorpion Tank and Charizard are worth more than a Plasma Pistol and Bulbasaur respectively. But the other thing about Red Packs is that they give you like 10 items with each thing. And it's all playable content that, measured by the experience each piece of content provides, generally comes out to a tangible return for your money spent. You are very rarely ending up in this situation where you walk away with nothing after spending money, okay? For rec packs to be as bad as supply drops, there would have to be a 1% chance that you get any playable content at all. And the main reason I think rec packs are randomized is actually to control the flow of weapons into the game. Because if it wasn't random and I could just buy fucking tanks, and everyone could just buy, you know, the 1 or 2 things they wanted, every single match would just devolve into tanks and Spartan lasers, right? The game would become way oversaturated with a handful of the most powerful items. So with recs, they can determine how often something, you know, quote unquote drops, and that way they control the flow of items into the game and make sure that matches don't become, you know, stupid clusterfucks of 2 or 3 of the most powerful items in the game. Rec packs are like giving the ice cream man $2, and there's a chance you get a vanilla ice cream with 2 scoops, sprinkles, and cookie dough, or there's a chance you just get a 1 scoop vanilla ice cream. But either way, you're getting some fucking ice cream. The most likely outcome is never that you just get straight up nothing for your money, and that's what separates it from Black Ops 3. Black Ops 3's supply drops would be like there's a 1% chance you get an ice cream for $2. Most likely you're just going to get some confetti, or a barren popsicle stick, or maybe a sticker, none of which you can eat, none of which taste good, none of which you give a shit about, and none of which are worth the money you paid. And think about it this way, a Halo Rec Pack, a pack of Pokemon cards, will give you like 10 pieces of playable, tangible, actual content no matter what. For the same price, Black Ops 3 will give you 3 items, 99% of which are not playable pieces of content at all. The system that Halo 5 and Pokemon use will always give you something for your money, whereas Black Ops 3 usually gives you, arguably, nothing for your money. None of these other purchasing systems that supply drops are being compared to involve the same kind of consistent financial loss for nothing in return that defines Black Ops, and that's why these other systems like Halo 5 Rex or Pokemon cards never caused the same kind of controversy or backlash or outrage that Black Ops 3 has. Not even close. None of these other systems, CSGO, FIFA, whatever you want to say, none of them even came close to causing the kind of community outrage that supply drops have caused in both Black Ops 3 and Advanced Warfare. Supply drops piss people off in a way that other RGN systems never have, and there's a reason for that. And then something like, you know, CSGO crates, those items are all cosmetic. So you know what you're getting, and it's not paywalling off actual content, plus they have a trading system. So you actually have some control over your life. So look, all these RNG unlock system rec pack CSGO crates or whatever, what have you, I don't like them. I wish they were done differently. I've complained about them a lot in the past. But none of them are on the same level of douchebaggery as Black Ops 3 supply drops. Activision takes it one step farther than the other guys. It's like horny bosses sexually harassing their secretaries, okay? And most of them are just making inappropriate comments or jokes and hoping it leads somewhere. But then there's that one fucker who's pretending to give massages and then, oops, he accidentally groped your tits. And that's the guy who gets sued eventually if he doesn't cut it out. Black Ops 3 supply drops are deliberately designed to scam you out of as much money as possible while basically giving you nothing in return. And the little bit they do give you, they basically price gouged you for. $3 for camos and reticles is not worth it. Hundreds of dollars for one gun is not worth it. Now, again, millions of people losing a whole bunch of money on RNG systems, whether it's slot machines or supply drops, that is perfectly legal, except when it's people under a certain age. Now, what a lot of people argued in the comments of my last video is that, hey, you know, the game is rated M, so nobody too young to gamble, in theory, should be gambling on Black Ops 3. And so many people trotted out this argument, which I think is silly because it's so filled with holes. First of all, an M rating actually means 17 and older, which means even by this argument's logic, 17-year-olds still have access to the gambling, and that would make it illegal underage gambling in most states and countries. But even if an M rating was 18 and above, many places have a 21 and older gambling requirement, including my state of California, which has like 60 million people. It's the most populated state in the US and is more populated than many European nations. So obviously there'd still be a lot of underage gambling going on here, but the most important thing to consider is just because it's illegal for someone under 17 to buy the game doesn't mean it's legal for them to play the game. It's perfectly acceptable for 10-year-olds to play Call of Duty. They just have to get their parents' permission. It's the same shit with R-rated movies. So with that in mind, obviously kids of all ages are going to have access to this gambling system, and we know that. We know plenty of 10 and 13-year-olds are playing COD. Most of us were playing COD when we were 10 and 13. 13, and Treyarch and Activision obviously are aware of that and aware that it's entirely plausible that plenty of children will play this game once they get their parents' permission. So no matter how you look at it, there is widespread, de facto, underage gambling taking place on this system, okay? Which is extremely unethical behavior, because there is a reason we as a society have reached a consensus that you have to be above a certain age to engage in gambling. It's the same reason we all agree you have to be above a certain age to buy alcohol or drive, because these are activities which can do a lot of harm to someone if they aren't used responsibly. And we agree that the younger you are, the less you have learned about the world, the less likely you are to make responsible decisions, which is a concept I agree with, and I actually support the 21 age for gambling, because like, I was still a fucking kid at 18, and most people are. I had not taken on the financial responsibilities of adulthood at that point. At that age, I don't think a lot of people fully comprehend the value and importance of the money they have because they are still so supported by their parents. It's only once you've had to pay bills and skip meals that you can truly appreciate the damage of losing big bucks gambling. So presently, Treyarch is taking advantage of the stupidity of young people to scam them out of money. It's wrong, it's not cool, stop making counter arguments defending them, it's bullshit, fuck them and fuck you if you stick up for them. The For the Win query of the day is, of those of you who have spent money on supply drops, and I don't blame you, alright, not holding it against you, how much money did you spend, and what did you get in return, and are you happy with what you got in return? Do you feel like it was worth the money spent? Of all the stuff you did get for the money you spent, how much do you think it was actually worth, the things you got, the reticles and the emblems, and maybe you got a gun or two? Let me know. This is Batman signing out.